Welcome back to my channel. Celeb Buzz, please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. The Buddy Holly mystery is finally solved, and it's not good. Buddy Holly was born Charles Hardin Holly on September 7th, 1936 in the small and windy town of Lubbock, Texas. He came from a loving and simple family. His parents, Lawrence Odell Holly and Ella Pauline Drake Holly, worked hard and cared deeply about their kids. They raised their children with old-fashioned values based on faith, good behavior, and helping their community. Buddy was the youngest of 4 kids and quickly showed he was a smart, full of energy child who loved to learn new things. Growing up in a Southern Baptist home, church music was always playing in his life. The sounds of country and Western swing music also filled the Holly house. These early music sounds became the base for the amazing artist Buddy would become. As a young boy going to school in Lubbock, Buddy showed he had a natural gift for music. By the time he was a student at Hutchinson Junior High School in the early 950s, his love for sound and beat had grown stronger. He learned to play the violin, piano, and guitar. Guitar was his favorite instrument thanks to help from his family and local music player. It was during this time that Buddy made a strong friendship with Bob Montgomery, another music lover and student. Their shared excitement led them to make a music duo they called Buddy and Bob in 1952. The two boys, barely teenagers, were inspired by the mix of Western swing, bluegrass, and country music that was popular in Texas. Their first shows were small school talent shows, church meetings, and small community events. But it quickly became clear that Buddy and Bob had something special. Their smooth singing together and charming stage presence connected with audiences, and their popularity grew fast. Soon, local clubs began asking them to perform, and the duo became regulars at various social places across Lubbock. Their local fame earned them a Sunday morning slot on a local Lubbock radio station. Their weekly radio shows helped build a growing fan base and got the attention of music business insiders. A major turning point in Buddy's music growth came in 1955 when he saw Elvis Presley perform live in Lubbock. Presley's new rockabilly sound, mixing rhythm and blues with country, had a deep effect on Buddy. From that moment on, he began adding the raw energy and rebellious spirit of rock and roll into his own music. This bold, trying new things marked the beginning of his move away from traditional country music and the birth of the Buddy Holly sound. Looking for greater music opportunities, Buddy teamed up once again with Bob Montgomery and added Larry Wellborn on bass. Together, they formed a group first called Buddy Holly, and the 3 tunes, their unique mix of country roots and emerging rock influences, caught the attention of talent scouts from Nashville. Nashville at the time was a booming center of country and popular music. This recognition led to a recording deal with Decca Records, one of the major labels of the time. Buddy took his first big step into the professional music industry. Despite early problems with Decca, which failed to market him well and misspelled his last name as Holly, a change Buddy decided to keep, he stayed determined. In 1957, determined to follow his music vision, he formed a new band called The Crickets. The group included Jerry Allison on drums, Joe B. Malden on bass, and Nikki Sullivan on rhythm guitar. Buddy took the role of lead singer and lead guitarist. Their sound quickly grew into something refreshingly different, melodic yet edgy, youthful yet musically smart. One of the first songs they recorded as the Crickets was the now famous That'll Be the Day. It was inspired by a line often spoken by John Wayne in the classic Western movie The Searchers. Recorded in early 1957, the track would go on to become one of the most influential rock and roll singles in history. It showed Buddy's distinct vocal style, sharp lyrics, and signature guitar riffs. The song soared to the top of the charts, reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. This established Buddy Holly and the Crickets as rising stars. Following the success of that single, the Crickets released their first album, The Chirping Crickets, in November 1957. The album featured a series of upbeat tracks filled with catchy hooks, driving rhythms, and polished harmonies, all of which would help define the early rock and roll sound. At the same time, Buddy got a solo recording contract with Coral Records. This allowed him to explore more personal and stylistically diverse musical projects, even as he continued performing with the Crickets. This dual recording arrangement was unusual at the time. It showed both his ambition and the growing demand for his work. From 1957 through 1958, Buddy Holly and the Crickets recorded a string of hit singles that climbed music charts across the US and internationally. These included songs like Oh Boy, Maybe Baby, and Rave On. Their fresh sound, combined with Buddy's geek chic image, horn-rimmed glasses, clean-cut appearance, and shy manner, made them relatable to teens and respectable to adults. This was a rare combination in the rock and roll scene. In 1958, Buddy made a big life and career shift by moving to Greenwich Village in New York City. He was seeking to explore a broader artistic community and dive deeper into the recording and publishing side of the music industry. That same year, he released his first solo self-titled album, Buddy Holly. It featured some of his most lasting songs, among them the infectious and heartfelt single Peggy Sue became a huge hit, reaching the top 10 in several countries and further cementing his status as a music innovator. He continued to create music with remarkable productivity and passion. His final album, also titled That'll Be the Day, was released as a compilation of earlier Decca recordings, bringing his journey full circle. However, all was not well behind the scenes. Disputes over money, publishing rights, and artistic control began to cause tension among the band members. By late 1958, the Crickets broke up, leaving Buddy to face the challenges of the music industry on his own. In an effort to rebuild his finances and keep his momentum going, Buddy reluctantly joined a tough winter tour across the Midwest called the Winter Dance Party in early 1959. Despite the harsh weather and unreliable transportation, Buddy remained dedicated to his fans and determined to keep performing. Tragically, on the early morning of February 3rd, 1959, while en route to the next stop on the tour, Buddy Holly, along with fellow musicians Ritchie Valens and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, died in a plane crash near Clear Lake, Iowa. He was just 22 years old. The shocking accident devastated the music world and was later remembered as the day the music died, a phrase made famous in Don McLean's song American Pie. Although his life was heartbreakingly short, Buddy Holly's influence on modern music was deep and lasting. He was one of the first rock and roll artists to write, perform, and produce his own songs. His work inspired a new generation of musicians, including the Beatles, Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, and countless others. His legacy is a testament to the power of innovation, authenticity, and youthful spirit in music. A shining star that burned brightly, if only for a brief moment, but changed the world forever. On August 15th, 1958, at the quaint and reverent Tabernacle Baptist Church in Lubbock, Texas, the town where he was born and raised, rock and roll pioneer Buddy Holly exchanged vows with Maria Elena Santiago. He was a striking and soft-spoken receptionist working at a New York music publishing company. Their romance had blossomed with amazing speed. Buddy proposed to Maria Elena on their very first date, a whirlwind gesture of love that seemed to reflect the fevered pace of his meteoric rise in the music industry. Just weeks later, they were husband and wife, stepping into what they hoped would be a life full of promise and passion. Yet behind the image of young love, shadows loomed. Their union, though sealed with hope, was troubled almost from the beginning. Holly's relentless touring schedule and growing fame placed enormous strain on their relationship. The emotional distance grew wider with time, and whispers of marital tension circulated among those close to them. There were even rumors that the couple had been considering divorce shortly before his tragic death. The heartbreak deepened further in early 1959 when Maria Elena, who was carrying their first child, suffered a devastating miscarriage. The trauma came just hours after learning that her husband had perished in a plane crash alongside Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper during that fateful winter tour. In the cruelest of turns, not only had she lost her beloved Buddy, but also the future they had begun to build together. The two had only shared 6 months as husband and wife before it was all torn away. Adding a further layer of complexity to Holly's personal life was his connection to Peggy Sue Gerron, the young woman who inspired his smash hit Peggy Sue. Gerron, a vivacious and magnetic presence in Lubbock's music circles, had known Holly since their school days. At that time, she was romantically involved with Jerry Allison, Buddy's drummer in the Crickets. Their relationship was often turbulent, but Holly and Gerron maintained a flirtatious, emotionally charged friendship. Some insiders even speculated that there had been deeper feelings between them, feelings that never fully blossomed, but remained simmering beneath the surface. On July 22nd, 1958, just weeks before Holly married Santiago, Peggy Sue tied the knot with Jerry Allison. Ironically, the two couples decided to celebrate their weddings together, embarking on a shared honeymoon in Acapulco, Mexico, a brief interlude of joy and escape before the mounting pressures of fame and personal strife would begin to take their toll. However, all was not well behind the scenes. As tensions flared in both marriages, Buddy reportedly encouraged Guerin to leave Allison, citing Jerry's increasingly erratic, alcohol-fueled behavior. But Peggy Sue, raised in the Catholic faith, was reluctant to pursue divorce, even though her marriage was clearly unraveling. Years later, in 1965, she would ultimately part ways with Allison. In the final chapter of his life, Buddy Holly immortalized the tangled web of love and regret in a haunting new song titled Peggy Sue Got Married. Recorded as a solo demo in December 1958, just weeks before his death, the song reflected Holly's emotional complexity and lingering attachment to the people and relationships that had shaped his brief but brilliant life. It stands today not only as a musical sequel to his earlier hit, but also as a bittersweet commentary on the choices, missteps, and heartbreaks that accompanied his rise to stardom. For decades, the tragic death of Buddy Holly, one of the most influential pioneers of rock and roll, has been cloaked in mystery, myth, and speculation. On February 3rd, 1959, known forever as the day the music died, Holly perished in a plane crash along with fellow musicians Ritchie Valens and JP the Big Bopper Richardson. The accepted story that a small Beechcraft Bonanza aircraft crashed in an Iowa cornfield due to a combination of bad weather and pilot error seemed tragically straightforward. But as time passed, troubling questions began to surface. Why did the wreckage suggest unusual impact patterns? Why were there unconfirmed reports of a gun found at the scene? Why was the investigation so quickly closed? Now, decades later, new revelations and long-buried evidence have come to light, and what they suggest about Buddy Holly's final moments is deeply unsettling. The truth begins with a re-examination of the crash by aviation experts and forensic analysts. For years, rumors persisted that something more than weather brought the plane down. In 2007, a petition was submitted to the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, requesting that the crash be reinvestigated due to inconsistencies in the original report. Eyewitness accounts had mentioned strange sounds, flashes of light, and even speculated mechanical sabotage. Some suggested that the inexperience of the 21-year-old pilot, Roger Peterson, wasn't the sole cause of the tragedy, but perhaps the most chilling clue was a loaded revolver registered to Holly's bandmate, Waylon Jennings, that was allegedly discovered in the wreckage, yet never entered into official records. This single piece of information opened the door to wild but strangely plausible theories. Could there have been a struggle on board? Could someone have accidentally or intentionally fired a weapon mid-flight, causing a critical distraction or injury to the pilot? Though there's no definitive proof, the implications alone are disturbing. Even more unsettling is the suggestion that tensions among the passengers may have been mounting before takeoff, with the grueling winter tour known as the Winter Dance Party taking a serious toll on everyone involved. Frostbite, illness, poor planning, and long, bitterly cold bus rides. It's believed that tempers may have been at a boiling point. Holly, determined to take control of his career and frustrated with management, was allegedly at odds with some members of his entourage. Could this have led to a fateful confrontation at 8,000 feet? Adding fuel to the fire is the long-ignored testimony of survivors and tourmates. Waylon Jennings, who had given up his seat on the doomed plane to the Big Bopper, lived with survivors' guilt his entire life. In interviews, he often referred cryptically to the things that were never said about that night. Tommy Allsup, another bandmate who lost his seat to Ritchie Valens in a coin toss, similarly hinted at the eerie and unresolved nature of the crash. Why did those closest to the tragedy speak so vaguely yet so suggestively? Even Holly's widow, Maria Elena Santiago, expressed dissatisfaction with the official version of events. Having suffered a devastating miscarriage shortly after learning of her husband's death, she was never able to attend the funeral and wasn't allowed to see the crash site. For years, she maintained that the families were kept in the dark and that critical pieces of evidence, such as the location of Holly's body and the condition it was found in, were shrouded in secrecy. The implication was clear. What happened on that small plane over Iowa may have been more than a tragic accident. It might have been a moment of panic, confusion, or even violence that led to one of music's greatest losses. While official institutions still uphold the original conclusion of pilot disorientation and poor weather conditions, the emerging layers of mystery continue to challenge that explanation. Private investigators, biographers, and fans have pored over weather reports, autopsy records, and eyewitness statements for decades, each uncovering more troubling inconsistencies. What they found doesn't confirm a conspiracy, but it does strongly suggest that not everything was as simple as it first seemed. In the end, solving the Buddy Holly mystery doesn't bring peace, it only deepens the tragedy. Knowing that his death may not have been just a cruel twist of fate, but potentially the result of mismanagement, emotional distress, and possibly even human conflict, casts a long shadow over his enduring legacy. Holly was just 22 years old, newlywed, an expectant father, and a musical genius on the verge of transforming the industry. The world lost more than a rock and roll star that night. It lost what might have been a seismic cultural force. And if what we now suspect is true, then the mystery of Buddy Holly's death isn't just sad, it's haunting.